Hello, hello. So today we have Felly Day, who is an unprofessional entrepreneur, joining us today to share her scaling story. Thank you so much, Felly, for being here.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so let's get into it. So introduce yourself and please tell everybody what your business looks like today.
Okay. So my name's Felly. I currently run a content repurposing agency, meaning that all we do is repurpose content. And we work with established entrepreneurs who want to be showing up on multiple platforms, but can't be bothered to create all the content, or just have been in the business for so long, they have so much content collecting dust that they are ready to give someone else the job of digging through it and pulling out the gems. Um, I'm like, that's my business. I'm living in the south of France. Don't love it. Um, but originally from
Okay,
Canada
tell me, wait,
and
we're going to get,
just
yeah,
for
let's get
fun.
back to your business in a second. Yeah, why don't you love the south of France? Okay, how did you end up in the south of France from Canada? One, and two, why don't you love it?
Okay, so was a traveler, and I ended up in Mexico during the pandemic, and I met my now husband, the Frenchman, who is from France. So we are here getting married, yeah, we're getting married in September. So basically here to get married, and then I would like to leave. But I'm like, maybe other parts of France would be completely different, but where we're living, it's like where he grew up, and it is middle of nowhere, very, very small town. Thankfully, I'm fluent in French because otherwise I would
Oh,
be
nice.
like a hermit, but it's people who have never left this region, and I am someone who's been traveling since I was 17. So I have no community here whatsoever, and it's
Right.
not my place.
It's so, but I mean, it's good to know that, and it sounds like you'll be able to escape soon enough.
Mhm.
Like you have plans, escape plans. It's so funny because as somebody who's moved to another country, I feel like I've been like connecting with so many other people who have done this. And before I moved to another country, like I didn't. And so I'm just like, oh, like, I don't know, it's like this fun little community of online business owners who get to do things like travel around and live in different places and things like that, which is really interesting. And although you don't love where you live, I'm sure it has been, I don't know, it's been character building perhaps, and and you've learned things. So they're interesting experiences.
I've learned that I am not patient. Before I would have said I was patient, but living here, I'm just like, no, I have no time for it. I'm ready for the year to be done and for me to live somewhere
Yeah,
else.
yeah. Well, I will wish you well. I'm sure that you will make it happen. It'll be good. So let's get back to your business journey. Okay, so now you're doing content repurposing. You have this agency. This is it. This is what you do. I would love to hear about how we got to this place. So when and what was your business when you started it? What did it look like? How did you get into that?
Yeah, so I got started as a general VA. I basically would take any work because I just knew that I wanted to get out of Canada and not have to rely on a job that required people in person. So I found VA work, started as a VA, quickly turned into a content writer niche. And then that expanded into a content agency, which then niched down into content repurposing. Because at the end of the day, I believe that repurposed content makes the best content if you want to outsource it. It's just, I ran into so many roadblocks trying to create content for people with a blank slate every single month, right? And so it got to the point where I was asking people, do you have something for me to work off of? And then that turned into well, this is just repurposing. And so, yeah, that's how it came to be.
Yeah. And you know what you were saying reminded me of, because a lot of people, and I don't know the percentage now. I know like back a few years ago, it was so common to just be like, okay, I'll hire somebody, have them write everything. And now, thankfully, I feel like there's more of a focus on authenticity and people just showing up as themselves. And as somebody who was just writing content for people, I can't imagine like having to take on their voice, like all of these things that are just so nuanced about them and their business and things like that. That like I actually really love this content repurposing because there's so much out there that you've already done. And then it's like you kind of feel like sometimes you write these things and it takes you 30 minutes, an hour, and then like three people see them and then you never do it again. Like they're like it's nice to feel like, okay, at least I'm making the most out of these like things that I put my heart and soul into.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like you said, you could spend half an hour and then post it and then never touch it again. But that doesn't mean that everyone in your audience saw it. That doesn't mean like the message hit the first time, right? So there's so much to be said about like repeating yourself and just like resharing the same message over and over and over again so that people get to know you, get to know your brand, and get to know your offers.
Yeah, totally. And so let's talk about your journey in terms of, was it a smooth ride in terms of like general VA to content to the she made
Yeah.
a face that was really funny. To this agency that's repurposing. Talk about that because I love these stories because it's so normal, to be for it to be a bumpy ride and nobody talks about the bumps. And so I love to hear like the actual journey part of it.
So
Like what's the first thing, yeah, like that comes to mind and I'm like, okay, like
I
that I
signed my
asked you if it was, yeah. Hmm?
I signed my first client August 2019. And that was like a client through what's it called? Craigslist actually, which is like
Oh,
so
wow.
ironic.
Wow.
Um but it was like general VA like 10 hours a month just doing like random tasks like engaging in a Facebook group, clearing the emails. Then I had a few more clients like trickle in through referrals through like a program that I joined, and that's when I want to say like by November, December of 2019, I was already leaning more towards like content specific, marketing specific tasks as a VA. But by March 2020, I had 10 clients and 2 team members. And by June 2020, I was like a full agency. We had like 16 clients at one point with 5 team members, and it was just so overwhelming. And it was
It's so
not
funny?
smooth. What?
I did the same thing because I
Yeah.
feel like when you're a VA, that's like all you know to do is like, well, I'm getting all of these clients, so I'll bring on some subcontractors and
I'll just keep
and do
going.
it. But yeah, oh my God, but it's terrible. Like for me, anyways, it was like no, like
Well, and like I always say, like the biggest mistake I made was that I was doing hourly work
yeah,
and
yeah.
I definitely wasn't charging enough. Like I was basically giving my team members like 75%. And then, like, having nothing left over for myself at the end, but not understanding why I wasn't making any money.
What's going on? Yeah. And it's
Right.
a lot of work. Like people don't understand because it's like your name. So you want to make sure everything is right. So, so you're like checking, answering questions, like having to like relay. At least that's what I did. I don't know. People do it differently, like relay the task, like these different things. So it was
Yeah,
actually
like,
a lot more work
doing the back and
than you
forth
think.
between client,
Yeah.
team member, reviewing what the team member does, go back to the team member to edit it, back to the client to deliver
Right.
it, back to the team member with review. Like, yeah, it
Yeah.
was not at all streamlined like it could have been, and it definitely, like,
Mm-hmm.
took me a minute to figure that out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So then what happened after that?
Basically my business, like, imploded. And I, like, lost sense of direction. I started, like, selling
Mm.
one-on-one, selling, like, random things, still having agency clients, but not focusing on it because I didn't know what my offers were, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And by the beginning of 2022, I decided to, like, niche it s only to content repurposing. Like, before I'd kind of been like, "Yeah, we do copywriting. Yeah, I'll help you with your sales page. Yeah, I'll help you, like, set things up," like, just being a yes man. And so then beginning I wanna say late 2021, like, maybe even December to beginning 2022 is when I was like, "No, like, I gotta create packages. We're gonna specifically do content repurposing. I'm gonna ditch," because I had like Pinterest, a Pinterest manager, a tech VA, and it was like I don't have actual work for these people. So like I'm gonna like restructure my team. And then, yeah, by the end of 2022, I had the business that I have now where it was, like, streamlined and systemized and lots of it automated as well, but
So I want to get into that a little bit because what led to, aside from the implosion, what was like, was there a like straw that broke the camel's back type of a situation where you're like, no, I can't do this anymore? And do you recall how you made the decision to go where you actually ended up?
so, like, I always say, like, June 2020 is, like, when I kind of broke down, and I think I just like, you were striving to hit a goal for so long, like, I wanted to build a business so
Yeah.
that I could leave Canada, so that I could live outside of the country and self-sustain myself, and so
Right.
I got to the point where I was making good enough money, like 3 to 5K a month living in Mexico. I was fine, and then I just kind of hit this wall of like, "Well, what's next?" And, like, "What am I doing with my life?" And, like, just whole, like, quarter life crisis, like, basically. And, yeah, and it took me, like, all of 2021, like, therapy, journaling, like, mindset work, self-discovery, testing offers to, like, figure out what was wrong, like, why I wasn't happy, and then it kinda took me all of 2022 to, like, get back to, like, my messaging, my offers, like, to, like, rebuild what I had originally built in 2019 before I, like,
Mhm.
imploded. But I wanted
No,
like,
but
I
this is
would
so,
say it
yeah.
was it was me that kind of
Yeah.
broke down more than, like, the business itself broke down.
Mm. I think it's really important too that you're breaking down the timeline because I feel like people like just see people online and it looks like, oh, one day they just have this thing and it's amazing and everything is aligned and like they know like, but that's not. It's a journey. We have really similar journeys because it took me like on the coaching side of my business, it took me like a year and a half, maybe more, to figure out like what I actually want to offer and like, like experimenting and playing around and be like, who am I? What am I doing? And it is a journey, So I think it's important to normalize that it's not something necessarily that you just wake up one morning and you're like, this is who I am and I'm going to launch this thing and create these packages,
Yeah, like,
like
I
it
have a
takes a
content
minute.
repurposing agency, we're about to hit 5 years, but, like, the first 2 years, that's not what I was doing.
Right. 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 And I also think the other thing you said that was important, was that it was you behind it. That was the one that kind of broke down and needed to rebuild before you could even rebuild your business to what it should be or what felt like much better for you. And to me, this is really important because it's true, because our business is a reflection of us. And if we're not in a good space, like it's a healing journey on its own. It's like a whole personal development, self-growth journey to have a business in the first place. So we do have to work on all of the, like it forces us in a way to work on all of these things because we're relying on our business for our survival. And we also have to be, right, like in a good place in order to carry it, to like carry the weight of our business. So all those
Yeah.
things are really important. So thank you for sharing that.
Mhm. Yeah, like,
You
I
look
was
like you had something
definitely
else, like thoughts. Yeah.
uh I was just thinking, like, I was definitely in, like, a major life transition, like, 2020 was it 2020? Yeah, like, I went from, like, 25 to, like, mid-20s to late 20s, and it was kind of like this period in my life of, like, okay, like, I'm done with, like, the gig work, the casual work, the seasonal work, bopping around, travel till I run out of money and go back to Canada, like, it was like, I wanna, like, make my own money so I don't have to return, but also, am I gonna build a home base? Like, what's my future looking like? Because I feel like in my early 20s, I was very much just, like, go with the flow, like, once this job ends in 6 months, I'm gonna travel till I run out of money, and then I'll find another job. And then it was like I met my now husband, I was living in Mexico, and it was kind of like, "Where is my life going?" And I just couldn't figure it out, and because I couldn't figure that out, I couldn't envision what I even wanted from my business.
This is such a good point because how can you, right?
Mhm.
Like, how can you know what you want your business to look like if you don't know, like, oh, do I want to be like stable in a home and like work these certain hours? Because that's a different be on calls, do, whatever, like that's a different setup than if you're like, oh no, I just want to work in the background and not do anything and be totally free. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is totally different businesses. And then if you set one up and decide you want your life to look the other way, then you're like, well, wait, like what do I do now? and things like that.
Yeah,
So
and it's like,
so it is a lot of, yeah.
am I gonna be traveling and changing time zones? Like, can I even
Right.
schedule calls, or am I gonna be with a home base that I can have calls certain days of the week? No problem. Like, where's also Mexico, like, did not have stable Wi-Fi, so it was like, how do I what's my, like, backup plan for the fact that Wi-Fi goes out constantly, or the fact that, like, some days it's just there's no Wi-Fi in town because there's strong wind, and it was like, am I staying here? Am I not staying here? And of course, like, the fact that it was, like, 2020, 2021, like, that also played into the uncertainty of it because borders were closed and I couldn't travel. So,
Yeah.
there was a lot of unknown factors, and, like, me liking control, wanted to, like, figure out the factors, but it wasn't for me to figure out. Like, I didn't know I was gonna marry my boyfriend. I didn't know if the borders were ever gonna open again, like, I
Right.
couldn't
But
decide.
how did you deal with that? How did
How
you what was the process of you actually giving up the control of this, and what did that look like?
You know what? It wasn't even, like, a matter of me working to give up control, it was me working to release shame, because I felt so much shame for not knowing, and, like, not having clarity on my life, and, like, not having direction, and it was just like, like, you had all those expectations, like, I was, like, 26, 27, 20, almost 28, and I was like, I thought I'd be married, I thought I'd have kids, like, I thought I would have, like, a house, money in the bank, like, here I am, like, renting random places in this beach town in Mexico, like, I don't have a real job by, like, Canadian definitions, I never went to university, like, what was I thinking? Like, it's too late, like, the sky is falling kind of thought process, but, like, when I let go of, like, all of that shame that I was putting on myself based on, like, things that I honestly don't even believe,
Right.
it
Well, it's
kind
societal,
yes,
right? It's like the
like
societal
society's beliefs, but
shame.
not my beliefs, right?
Right.
And so it's like, what do
Right.
I actually believe, and what do I actually want? So, there was a lot of journaling and a lot of therapy.
Yeah, but it's so interesting though because these are all the things that like you're speaking to my soul because I'm like, yes, because these are, all of the things that I talk about with my clients because it's so important. Like what do you actually want and all of that. And I love that you did all of this like therapy and journaling work and then what came from it was a business that you actually really love.
Mhm.
One that was set up properly with
Yes.
systems and things, really,
Yes, and then
like
I actually set up properly the second time.
yeah. So it just really speaks to how important all the inner work is
Mhm. Oh,
for your
definitely.
business. Yeah. So speaking of setting up your business properly, tell me what, how, so having the experience of having a business, I'm not going to say set up improperly, but set up in a way where it just wasn't systematized, was a little bit chaotic. What did you do the second time around? Because now you have an agency, you still have an agency, so you still have people, you were more focused on your offers. So what did it look like and what did you have to do the second time around to set it up in a way where it felt much better?
I feel like the first thing is that I systematized my offers. Like, before, if someone
Yes.
came to me, if someone signed a contract, like, we would start when they signed the contract, and I, like, didn't really have, like, turnaround times established. It was kind of like, "Well, what are we working on right now for me to tell you how long it'll take?" And I also, like, in terms of hiring, I didn't have, like, things very clearly laid out for my team members to come in and, like, know what I was working for, so there would be kind of, like, months of back and forth feedback of, like, "This is how I want it done, this is, like, the standards that I expect, like, this is our processes," right? And so, it was, like, a twofold thing of, like, putting the SOPs in place for team and getting clear and systematizing the offer. So, like, now if you sign the contract, whenever you sign the contract, we start on the 1st of the month, and content gets delivered to you on the 15th of the month. So,
Nice.
like,
Yeah.
that way, like, you have this 2-week delivery time, when I need the content from you, when you're getting the content delivered from me. I have, like, rules on when I need revisions by to be able to, like, get everything ready for the next month. So, like, those 2 things were really important in bringing my business back and having it, like, actually work without driving me crazy.
Yeah, and as, also I do like also OBM, so like you're speaking my other love language, right? Which is all the systems of the organization and all of that stuff. And yes, as somebody who has managed many a team, I cannot tell you. I actually have a recent client who I had come on, and the SOP that supposedly existed did not. Like terrible. And I'm bringing on a new VA and training her, and we're both like, no idea how to do any of this. So like, because
No
there's no
instructions.
SOP there. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I had to take and then it's a burden, because then the business owner has me like is paying for me managing my time to then go back and like retrain and do all of these things that weren't set up properly the first time. Whereas if the SOP existed as it should have, it would have been a much easier and smoother onboarding process. Her clients would have been served better. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it all just like
Mhm. It
goes
it
back to
it
this.
waterfalls down, right? And it's like
Yeah.
a big part of it for me when it came to actually putting real SOPs in place was understanding what I should be putting in an SOP.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think
Mm-hmm.
my first SOPs were like, "This is how you write a caption. This is how you," but I'm like hiring a content writer. They know how to write content. I'm not hiring you if you don't know what you're doing, right? Like, so it was more of like, this is when content is due. This is how you deliver content. This is where you put it. This is like how you format it. Here's an example, like, and changing those SOPs to like that of like, this is what I'm gonna be looking for when I review your content. That's when hiring became so much easier. I think I went through like 3 content writers before I got to the one that I have right now. But like every time it was kind of like, okay, I can see like you read the SOP and, like, you're doing what I'm asking, like, if you're, like, actually to the standard that I'm looking for, like, it was, like it made the process so much easier versus before where I was kind of, like, shooting in the dark almost, like, with my hires of,
Right.
like, "Are you not getting it because I didn't explain it clearly? Are you not getting it because I'm missing something? Like, or you just I
Yeah.
shouldn't have hired you, like, what's it? What's the
Right.
situation?"
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But that's such a good point though, because this is true, right? Because you don't know, like, is it my fault? Because a lot of the time it's the business owner's fault and they don't realize. Because you're like, I don't know what you want from me, as the person that they're being hired. And you probably experience this as a VA, like people not giving clear expectations, clear boundaries, clear directions, and then you feel like you messed up. But really, it's on them to communicate what they're actually looking for and to provide actual instructions and guidance. So, and for those listening, if you're creating if you're like, oh, I need to create some SOPs, the point is that anybody should be able to step in and follow the SOP and be able to carry out the task. Like, period. This
Yeah,
is the whole purpose.
yeah,
So, and it just makes your life, it takes a minute, it takes time to do
yeah.
all of these things, right? Like, there were some eye rolling where, like, yeah,
You have to
it
prioritize
takes,
doing it.
yes, it takes time to have, like, don't think like, oh, on a weekend, I'm going to have all my SOPs in place. Like, no, this is like an ongoing process and it takes a minute. That plus, I mean, in my case, what I always advise is to have these things in project management tool and all of that stuff. And then on the other side, even just having like systematizing your offers, like, oh my heart, like please,
Yeah.
like you want to be able to scale and grow and have your life flow. Like have your offers, have a process, have boundaries, be like, this is what I'm doing because it makes your life so much better. And your client, and then you look like an authority. You look like this is my business. I know what I'm doing,
No,
and
you're
this is
fine.
how I operate. And you hired me to tell you what to do, right? Like not like catering to the whims of everybody else because you're the expert. Like you're the content person, right? So like you should tell them what to do. No?
Which is funny though, because like I feel like the first 2 years in business, I didn't even know that you could systematize an offer. Do
Mm,
you know? Like it was like I
yeah.
didn't realize that I was missing this thing. I just knew that things weren't working. And
Well, how
so
did
it
you
was
find
like,
out? Like
I
what was the
joined
thing that?
a mastermind for like agency owners. And I don't know
Ah,
why it took
nice.
me 2 years to join a mastermind for agency owners, but like yeah, it was like that's where I like learned about SOPs and like just like how to build an offer that can be like delivered to a large amount of people without everything falling through the cracks, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
definitely like opened my eyes to a lot of things that I just like had no idea because I'd been learning from coaches who were doing like one-on-one coaching or like group coaching programs, you know, and like they just didn't
Yeah.
actually do done for you to be able to like explain what I was missing with my done for you offers.
Okay, we need to pause on this
Yeah.
because this this is the importance of working with somebody who because like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to work with this coach because they're big and famous or like whatever, you know, they promise the sun, moon, and the stars to whoever. But unless they actually know what your business is, you're not going to get anything from them.
Yep.
Right? Like like you're not going to. So like thank you for sharing this because working with coaches, right? Like okay, like they work with other coaches. Like great, they can tell other coaches how to run their business. But unless they actually know how to run an agency, a done for you business, unless they've been in the trenches, what are they going to tell you? They don't know. And I also find it fascinating that they like couldn't tell you about like SOPs and like structure. Like just so interesting to me. I guess maybe because to me it's so obvious because this is like what I do,
Yeah.
right? Like, but like I find it fascinating that they missed that whole part of it, and the importance of you're like, okay, I want to run an agency. This is what I'm doing, so I found somebody who is specific to what I'm looking to do, and that's what turned everything around for you.
Yeah, because I think like a coach that has team members, whether they have an OBM or a VA, that person isn't doing client focused work. That person is
Right.
supporting the entrepreneur. And so the work that they do is so different. It's like it's not front facing a lot of the times unless they're doing like customer support inbox. But when it's like, I need you to create on behalf of me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's where it's like,
Yeah.
if you're outsourcing to a social media manager, it's not the same as bringing someone onto your team, right? So, the
Mm-hmm.
SOPs that you have in place are so different, and
Right.
it did
Right.
like, yeah, it's, like, mind-blowing, and then I knew it and know it now of, like, you should hire people who are doing what you want to be doing, but it's, like, more
Right.
specific than just, "I want to be living and traveling the world." It's, like, I want to be doing an agency and not coaching,
Right.
right?
Right.
So,
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
because even
Yeah.
afterwards, I hired someone for one-on-one that is, like, a one-on-one coach, and I was just like, "You don't get it." Like,
Mm.
you don't have
Mm.
we have such different business models. It's like the problems that I have come up, like, you've never dealt with, and it's just
Mm,
not the same.
so important. Yeah, 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 totally. It's really, really important things to share. So, yeah, thank you. So now that you went through this mastermind, you set up your program, you set up the everything. How is it? Like, what is your day? Like, explain for people who are maybe interested in the agency model. What does your day look like? And like, what are you focused on? Are you enjoying it more now that it's set up correctly? Because I don't know if like for me, I was like, no, agency is not for me because I was like, I had a bad experience, like, but you had the same one and then you stuck with it. So I'm curious to know like, so what is it like now?
It is so different. I mean, like, because of the setup we have of, like, start creating on the 1st, deliver on the 15th, basically, if there's no revisions after the 15th, like, we don't have work. So I kind of only
Oh,
work, like,
nice.
the first 2 weeks of the month, which is great. Um, and and yeah, like, I have my business set up to the point where I don't usually do any client work. I have a content writer
Beautiful.
that does all of
Yeah.
the written repurposing, so she does, like, emails, blogs, social media content, and then I have a video editor that either, like, chops up YouTube videos, makes B-roll videos, like, stock photo videos, whatever, using content that they've already created, right? So, basically, the 1st of the month, I make sure that my team has everything they need to get created. Around, like, 7th, 8th, it gets sent to me to review. If I have revisions, I give it to them, and then the 15th, it goes to the clients. So
What a
I
beautiful business model.
Yeah,
You're like, yeah.
depending how many clients I have, I probably do, like, 2 to 3 hours of work at the 1st of the month and, like, 2 to 3 hours of work at the 15th of the month, and that's my business. Like it's so easy. It's like ridiculous sometimes. And I'm just like, why did I take so long to build it like this? What was I doing?
It it was for a purpose. There was a
Yeah.
journey there. You had to
Yeah.
learn
Yeah.
all the things. And then what about on the marketing side? So are you spending a lot of time, or are your clients ones that stay on? Are they retainer clients, or their projects, or like in terms of marketing and getting new clients, how are you? Or like what are you looking to do also? So two parts. One is like, I have a lot of questions. So
I
we'll
would
do the
say,
first one. So yeah.
what am I doing for marketing?
Um yeah, and like what's your goals, Like so and like are your clients staying on with you?
So my current goals are to get more clients. I would like to have somewhere between 7 to 10 clients at a time. I currently have like 4 to 5 this month, April, whenever you're listening. Um and currently we have people on retainers, 3-month retainers. I like the idea of extending that, especially because I plan to take September off for my wedding. And then I have a wedding in the US in October, so it's kind of like it would be really nice for me to like get some 6-month contracts in place. So right now I'm like really in the like lead generation phase. I am all the time on Threads because that's where I'm seeing 90% of my clients come from right now.
Really? Well, that's
And
interesting.
it's like people come into my world on Threads, I talk to them on
Yeah.
Instagram, they listen to my podcast, and then they sign.
Hmm.
So right now my marketing is my podcast and Threads, and I'm in the process of setting up a 9 grid for my Instagram so I don't have to post. And then once
We
that
we are all about simplicity over
Yeah,
here.
yeah. And, like, once my 9 grid is done, my next project is to try and be, consistently on Pinterest, to be driving,
Mm.
like, through
Yeah.
my especially because of the podcast, right? So, because I have the
Right.
podcast, it's like I have so much content that I can be driving people back to my website and just increasing my traffic.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like, I'm kinda, like, removing myself from Instagram except for the DMs and going more long form in my marketing. But yeah, I'm, like, seeing really good traction from Threads, so I'm pretty confident that by June, I'll be able to, like, book out my agency and then just be, like, nurturing to get people continuing, like, either a wait list or, like, another content writer, like, depends, like, how I feel, like, what I wanna manage, and go from
Right.
there.
Yeah. I love that. And the marketing aspect you have going on is really interesting too. Because I feel like on my end, that's like an area that I'm still playing around with, is like, because it's the same almost like setting up your business
Mhm.
as it is, then it's like, okay, now how do I market my business and
Mhm.
what feels good to me and all of those things. So how did you land on Threads
Well, it's
as like the
funny
place where you were?
because
Yeah.
I started 2024 thinking that I was gonna replace Instagram with LinkedIn. I
Okay.
was like, "I'm gonna go for LinkedIn." So many people talk about LinkedIn for done for yous, for service providers, for freelancers, and I personally have never liked engaging on LinkedIn, and that's always kind of been my downfall with it, and so I was like, "I'm gonna, like, give it an honest go. I'm gonna give it, like, the
Yeah.
3 months." And then Europe accepted Threads because when Threads first came out, I was, like, so gung ho, but then because I live in Europe, they blocked it because of all their
Right.
privacy laws. So Europe launched Threads basically, and within January, I think I'd gained like 300 new followers on Threads, like hit 1,000 followers on Threads, and my Instagram started to grow because of Threads, where like before my Instagram like almost never grew, and I was just seeing so much traction. I think when I did my analytics in February, Threads was second traffic driver behind Instagram. And I was just like, "Okay, 1 month of, like, not even intentionally posting on this new platform, and it's already surpassing the platform I've been on for 5 years. Like, I'm ditching my plan to go for LinkedIn, and I'm going to Threads."
Do you have a strategy on Threads?
I do, and I literally just dropped
Yeah.
a podcast episode last week that
Oh,
shares
girl.
it.
Promote it. Tell us.
So
So
if
what is your
anyone wants
podcast? Yeah.
to look at The Unprofessional Entrepreneur, it's episode 79. Um, but it's a combination of posting your own threads, engaging with other people's threads, and like being the type of person that people tag you in threads. Like literally when you like popped on this call, I was just tagged in someone's post that was like, I need someone to repurpose my podcast, blah, blah, blah. And like people will just
Yeah.
tag me all the time. Like anytime there's anything talked about repurposing, like I get tagged. And because of that, I get an influx of followers, I get client leads, and so
Yeah.
there's so many things I could say about, like, how to, like, maximize your reach on thread, but yeah,
But
like,
we'll go
being
listen to the podcast
yeah,
episode
like, I'll let
and
you go
yeah,
into
and
the
learn
podcast
all that.
episode because there's a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool. I haven't talked to anybody yet who's been like super into threads, like personally. So thank you for sharing that. That's really cool. Okay, so the last thing through all of this, what is your top scaling tip that you would have for somebody looking to grow their business?
Mm. Like, I wanna say content repurposing, which is, like, kind of ironic because it's what I do, but like, obviously I believe in it, and I think
Yeah.
as you get bigger, as you have more ambitious goals or, like, whatever it is that you're aiming for with your scaling, repurposing is a really great tool because you have all that content already created from when you first started. A lot of your messaging needs to be repurposed or needs to be repeated. And also, it's a good time when you're scaling to diversify the platforms you're showing up on. Like whether you want to be on Instagram and LinkedIn, or you want to launch a podcast, or you want to be more active on your blog or email list, to be able to go through that old content and like pull out the most popular content, the ones that have the messaging that people need to hear again and again. Like repurposing makes scaling so much easier, in my opinion.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of that. I love hearing these journeys and hearing, it's just very inspiring for other people, I feel like, as well, and to hear different things that people are doing. And that's beyond this like, "Okay, I'm just an admin VA and I'll do whatever you want, to like make like a business.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing. So let everybody know how they can stay in touch with you, whatever else you want to share. How can we do that?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram, find me on Threads, find me on LinkedIn. All of them are Felly Day at Felly Day. Same for my website, fellyday.com. And I have a private podcast. If you want to check that out, that is for those of you who want to DIY your repurposing strategy. I'll teach you how to turn one piece of content into 10. Or you can check out my podcast, The Unprofessional Entrepreneur, where we talk marketing, repurposing, and just life.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Felly. That was so fun.
Yeah, thanks for having me.